A longboard is a type of sports equipment somewhat similar to a skateboard, but much longer. Often faster because of wheel size, it's commonly used for cruising, downhill racing, slalom racing, sliding, and transport. Dimensions: most boards measure 84 to 150 centimeters in length, while widths vary from 22.8 to 25.4 centimeters. There are several longboard shapes, such as pintails, swallowtails, flat-nose riders, drop-through decks, drop decks, and boards with the same shape as a standard skateboard. Pintails permit looser trucks and larger wheels which are better suited for carving or a smooth feel, whereas drop decks and drop-throughs allow the rider to be closer to the ground, hence a lower center of gravity which increases stability and allows these boards to support more high-speed downhill riding disciplines. Mid-length boards, 94 to 127 centimeters, are the most versatile. Their greater weight and bulk makes them less suitable for many skateboarding tricks, but contributes to a fluid motion by providing more momentum. The longboard's design allows for big turns or quick short carves similar to the motions of surfers or snowboarders. Longboards have three axes: the tail axis, the central axis, and the short axis. The previous record for the longest distance traveled on a longboard was set by David Cornthwaite in 2006 when he skated 3,638.26 miles from Perth to Brisbane across Australia. This record has since been broken by Rob Thomas of New Zealand, who skated 7,555 miles. The land speed record on a longboard was set in 2012, when Miss Cho Urban reached a speed of 129.94 km per hour. Equipment and protection: the A helmet kite Euro unregistered trademark is more prevalent in longboarding than in skateboarding. Most riders wear protective equipment in all disciplines, and nearly all professionals wear a helmet and gloves. Longboard protective equipment is similar to standard skateboard equipment, with the exception of slide gloves. Most longboarders wear slide gloves and helmets, as these are considered the bare minimum for protection. Additional protection includes leathers, wrist guards, knee pads, elbow pads, and sometimes spine protectors and padded shorts. Many professional longboarding teams and riders are required to wear and advocate all aspects of protection. In the sliding and downhill disciplines, riders wear slide gloves, which are specialized gloves made out of a strong materials such as leather and synthetic fabrics, and have large discs called pucks attached to the palms. These are attached to protect the hands as the rider uses them to pivot during slides along the ground. The pucks are usually made of synthetic polymers, Delrin, UHMW, or Corian. Components: longboards are skateboards in terms of parts and general construction. However, the parts generally have different dimensions and the wheels are most likely a lot softer. Some, however, have relatively hard wheels for sliding, which makes longboards feel quite different than the ubiquitous skateboard. Decks. Longboard decks are typically made from plywood anywhere from 2 to 11 layers of usually 2 mm in thickness, composed of birch, bamboo, maple, or oak wood. Longboards are commercially available in a variety of shapes and sizes. Each variety has certain advantages and disadvantages, which come into play depending on the technique or personal preferences of the rider. Decks intended for riding downhill are typically stiff and have a wheelbase of around 30 inches - 28. Designers and manufacturers aim to make these boards as stiff and light as possible. The primary three designs of downhill boards are drop decks, top mounts, and drop-throughs. Each design has its own advantages. The drop deck has a lowered foot platform that sits below the height of the trucks. As a result, there is a lower center of gravity which adds to stability but gives you less traction and maneuverability. Wooden drop decks with concave have foot pockets by the drops. However, some carbon boards are able to feature concave by the drops instead of foot pockets, giving you more leverage in your turn. The drop-through design has cutouts that allow the base plate of the truck to protrude through the board, thus lowering the deck and providing more stability. In addition to this, drop-through decks decrease grip, as the deck is closer to the axle and moment arm of the wheel. There is also less leverage on the truck, which makes turning negligibly more difficult. Top mount boards are the simplest design of the three. There are no dramatic bends aside from the foot concave. The board sits on top of the trucks as it would in a street skateboard. Advantages to this design include increased grip and ease of turning. Disadvantages include a high center of gravity, which could contribute to a lack of stability. There are many variations of the aforementioned designs, including a double drop board, which incorporates both a drop-through and drop-down pattern. These are preferable for freeride as they are extremely low to the ground, which allows for ease of sliding. Foot space is important because there must be enough room on the board for the rider to form an aerodynamic tuck. Downhill boards are made as stiff as possible to minimize the amount of energy stored in the deck in order to ameliorate the creation of speed wobbles. Some boards are designed to be flexible. Flexible boards are usually intended for lower speed riding because when going faster, flexible boards can have torsional flex, which is one cause of speed wobbles. Fiberglass is used in many new flexible boards as it is light like carbon fiber but more pliable. Longboard decks can be shaped in such a way that they bow up or down along the length of the board. They can also have a downward bend along the width of the board. Concave boards, which bend upward on the sides, give the rider more friction for their toe and heel, thus giving them more control. Longboards, typically boards designed for downhill and or freeride, can also have W concave, which is concave with a ridge in the middle forming the W shape. W concave is helpful in a slide or corner by giving your feet extra grip so that your feet stays on the board. A camber board is a gradual upward arch along the length of the board. This sets the center of the board above the truck mounts. This is often used on flexible boards to prevent the board from sagging when it is being ridden. A rocker shape is the opposite of camber, which sets the center of the board below the truck mounts when it is being ridden. This lets the rider more easily perform tricks like sliding by locking your feet into the board. Decks recently have been made using materials other than wood. The types and quality of woods have increased over time and now many other superior materials have come into use. Aluminum, carbon fiber and fiberglass are just some of the new materials. Carbon fiber and fiberglass are used to strengthen or completely replace wooden decks because of their better strength-to-weight ratios. Some boards are pure carbon fiber with a foam core. These can weigh much less than boards of equal size. Aluminum decks are CNC cut out of sheets of aluminum and incredible shapes can be made. Pintails. The pintail shape is used to prevent the wheel from coming in contact with the board while still providing ample foot space. Pintails are most commonly used with top-mounted trucks. They are also good cruising boards. Drop-through boards, not to be confused with a double drop deck, have a cutout in the deck, allowing the base plates of the trucks to be mounted through the deck. The lowered platform allows for greater stability at high speeds. Some examples of drop-through decks are the Landeicht's Drop Speed, J-Sport's Drop, Rain Vendetta, Bustin Maestro, Original Freeride Series, the Sector 9 Mythostar and the Loditan 10. Hybrid. These kind of longboards include wheel cutouts which provide room for the wheels to turn at sharper angles while avoiding heel bite. Hybrids also tend to be shorter than other longboards, which allows the rider to be more stable. Cruiser, a most common deck shape, these have a somewhat similar shape to normal skateboards, in that they have a kicktail on the back. The main difference is it has trucks that are higher than standard skateboard truck. Also the wheels may be larger and are much softer than standard skateboard wheels. The bushings are much more flexible, giving the rider the ability to turn and maneuver more efficiently. These boards are more likely to cause wheel bite. Trucks are the metal turning mechanism that attach the longboard wheels to the deck. They come in a wide range of styles, with wider trucks meaning a wider turning circle. They use the motion of the rider's feet and body to turn the board by pivoting a joint in the middle of the truck. There are generally two types of trucks used on longboards, reverse kingpin trucks and conventional skateboard trucks. Conventional skateboard trucks have the axle on the outer side of the kingpin, whereas reverse kingpin trucks have the axle on the inner side of the kingpin. Popular conventional skateboard trucks include Independent and Tracker. Popular reverse kingpin trucks include Randall and Paris. Reverse kingpin trucks were created with longboarding in mind. While they are usually considered to have more grip and stability, conventional trucks have a very different feel that is often preferred by many longboarders. Hanger width can greatly influence the turning characteristics of a truck. A wider hanger is thought to be more stable. This is because the board generally has less leverage over the hanger, the wheels have a further distance to travel to get to an angle, and more board lean is lost due to bushing compression. The angle of the base plate can also greatly influence the turning and stability of a truck. As a general rule, as the degree gets smaller, the truck will be more stable, but turn less. For example, trucks with 44-degree base plates will generally be more stable than trucks with 50-degree base plates. Bushings. Bushings are perhaps the easiest things to change on a truck in order to change the feel of how it turns. Bushings are usually made of a polyurethane material, and come in varying shapes and diameters. Two of the most standard bushing shapes include barrels and cones. Barrels, having a larger shape, are often thought to have more stability and rebound, whereas cones, having a more narrow shape, allow for more turn and less rebound. The diameter of the bushing also greatly influences its characteristics. A harder bushing will be much harder to turn on than a softer bushing. The type of washers used with a bushing can also greatly affect the bushing's characteristics. While it depends on the size of the washer, generally a cupped washer will be the most restrictive on a bushing, a flat washer will be neutral, and a flipped cup washer will be the least restrictive. Another aspect of the longboard that has an influence on bushing performance is the bushing seat on the truck. The bushing seat is the area on the hanger where the bushing makes contact. This area often has a rim to cup the edge of the bushing, adding a small amount of restriction as the bushing deforms through a turn. Some trucks have very loose or even non-existent bushing seats, whereas others have very restrictive bushing seats, greatly reducing bushing deformation. More restrictive bushing seats generally found on trucks designed with faster riding in mind, as they offer more stability and lean. Riser pads. Riser pads increase the distance between the wheels on a longboard and the deck in order to prevent wheel bite. They also reduce the strain on the deck from the trucks being directly in contact with it and the vibration caused through riding. Riser pads are normally made of plastic. Shock pads, which are more rubbery than riser pads, serve the same function, only with more emphasis on reducing strain and less on increasing the distance between the wheels and deck. Riser pads also come angled, which can make the board turn more or less. Angled risers are usually used by LDPs, long-distance pumper, to help aid the rider in pumping. Bearings. Bearings connect the wheel to turn smoothly. Bearings can be made of many materials, including steel, titanium, or ceramics. Ceramic bearings are the most expensive. Bearings are usually rated in the ABEC scale. The ratings run from €1 using only odd numbers. The higher the rating, the more precise tolerances the bearing has been machined to. However, ABEC rating is not compulsory and not all bearings use ABEC ratings. Some companies will use other methods to describe the bearing's resistance and durability. Optionally, longboarders add bearing spacers between the bearings in the wheels. This allows for the axle nut to be tightened all the way down, eliminating the high-frequency wobbles and increasing the lifetime of the bearings. Wheels. Almost all longboard wheels are made from urethane. The performance of longboard wheels is determined by 5 characteristics: height, lip shape, contact patch, diameter, and hub setting. Typical longboard wheels range from 65 to 107 mm in diameter. A taller wheel will have slower acceleration but a faster rolling speed. Smaller wheels have the opposite effect. The diameter of a wheel is how hard the urethane is. A softer wheel will be ultimately slower than a harder wheel on smooth surface. When the road surface gets rougher, a softer wheel provides a smoother, faster ride. The fastest duro for the normal road is around 80 Softer wheels have more grip than harder wheels on any surface. The contact patch of a wheel is the width of the section of the wheel that makes contact with the road. Generally, the wider the wheel, the more traction it will have. Wheels can be anywhere from 50 to 100 mm in width, but most commonly between 60 and 70 mm. the shape of the lip has a noticeable effect on traction. Rounded lips are made to break loose into a slide and square lips are made to grip. Square-lipped wheels do break loose, but the slide is not as smooth as that of a round-lipped wheel. A wheel hub is the plastic center of a wheel that holds the bearings. The position of the hub affects the properties of the wheel. Center set wheels. The hubs in center set wheels are set equidistant from each lip of the wheel. Center set wheels tend to have the most grip, because they have large inner lips, and it is the inner lip of a longboard wheel that grips the most. Some longboarders prefer center set wheels for sliding because they wear more evenly, and when they become cone they can be flipped and still have the same feel. Center set wheels are more difficult to break loose than other wheels, and more speed is lost during the slide, but the slide is more controlled because of the grip the wheel has. Side set wheels. Side set have wheel hubs set flush with the inside edge of the wheel. Side set wheels offer a smooth transition from grip to slide, the slide typically being longer than that of any other wheel. This type of wheel has by far the fastest and most uneven wear because the rider's weight is on the very inside of the wheel. Freeriding is typically the discipline that this particular kind of wheel is used for. Offset wheels. The hub of an offset wheel is between the center and the inside edge of the wheel. Offset wheels provide less grip than a center set wheel, but more than a side set wheel. Similarly, they break loose more easily than a center set wheel, but less easily than a side set wheel. These wheels usually feature square edges for more traction around corners or in curves. Offset wheels are the most common wheel, typically used and designed for downhill, but they are used for all the other disciplines as well. Additional equipment. Slide gloves. A pair of slide gloves is an important piece of equipment for longboarding. Slide gloves are for control as much as for safety. They allow the rider to touch the road and lean on his or her hand, to slide to a stop, to pre-drift into a corner, to touch the road to regain balance if balance is lost, and to protect the hands and support the rider's body during a fall. There are many style moves that also can slow the rider down that can be used called slides. There are various slides such as the K9, pendulum, Coleman, and one-footed stalefish. These type of gloves could be homemade with just a thick plastic layer, and a glove. Cuyuna stick. The Cuyuna stick is a large pole or stick, usually with rubber or something similar on the end. This can be used to propel the rider far distances without the use of the rider's legs, and is primarily a form of locomotion derived by the rider's arms. The rubber end sometimes resembles wheels, however they cannot turn as they are fastened. Being in a wheel shape allows even wear as you can loosen, turn and fasten them again instead of having to replace the rubber. See also, skateboard, longboarding, snakeboard, freeboard, slalomboard, adrenaline skateboard marathon, breakboard, mountain boarding, handboards. References. External links, Longboard at DMOZ.